Ladies and gentlemen, I am so humbled and so honored to be able to introduce the next President of the United States of America, Senator Bernie Sanders!
Thank you, Fort Wayne. We got a lot of people here. Next time we may have to break down that wall over there, but that's all right. Let me thank Jessica Thrower and Andrea Hammond and David Kelso and Julie Dominguez for that very wonderful introduction. What I want to do this afternoon is talk a little bit about where our campaign is, and I want to talk a little bit about some of the differences, which are fairly profound, that we have with Secretary Clinton. And then I want to talk about the vision that I think we all share. And that vision is not just to elect a president, but it is to transform America. A vision that says that in this great country, it is absurd that millions of our people are working longer hours for lower wages, and almost all new wealth and income is going to the top 1%. A vision which says that American democracy is about one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. A vision which says that in this great country, we should not be having more people in jail than any other country on earth. You know, we began this campaign literally a year and a day ago. And when we began this campaign, we were considered to be a fringe candidacy. And people said, you know, Bernie, I know you comb your hair really fantastically, and you got this $2,000 suit on and all that. Not really. But nonetheless, you're probably not going to become president because the ideas that you are espousing are just too radical. And on top of that, all we had to do was take on virtually the entire Democratic establishment. We had to take on the Clinton campaign organization, the most powerful political organization in this country. But a year has come and gone, and as of today, we have won primaries and caucuses in 17 states. And tomorrow, Indiana, you are going to make that 18 states. When we began the campaign, we were some 60 points or more behind Secretary Clinton in national polls. In the last few weeks, a few polls have actually had us in the lead or a little bit behind. And what to me has been very gratifying, and if I may say so, revolutionary. Oh, this is a radical group. I like this group. This is Fort Wayne is ready for the political revolution. I can feel that. But here is what is interesting. In virtually every primary and caucus that has taken place, and in virtually every poll that has been taken, we win by big numbers the support of people 45 years of age or younger. What does that mean? What it means is that our ideas are the future of America and the future of the Democratic Party. And one of the main points that I want to make to you this afternoon is do not let anybody tell you that the ideas that we're going to talk about are outside of the mainstream, that they are radical. They are not. They are cemented in the desires of the middle class of this country. Now, I want to talk a little bit, campaigns are about ideas. And sometimes, and one of the disappointments I would say that I've had in this campaign is media is not much interested in ideas, more interested in campaign gossip and so forth. But I wanted to talk about some of the differences of opinion that Secretary Clinton and I have, because they're very important. Number one, to run for President of the United States today, unfortunately, it costs just a lot of money. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think you can say a lot and learn a lot about a candidate based on how they raise the money that they need to run a winning campaign. When we began the campaign, we had to make a decision. And the decision was, do we do what every other campaign does, and that is start a super PAC and beg Wall Street and corporate America for money? I see the thumbs going down. You're right. Well, that's the decision that we reached. We said, look, we don't represent Wall Street. We don't represent the 1%. We don't represent the billionaire class. We're going to do it without their money. So what we did was very, very radical. We ended up asking working families for their support. And what we said is, look, if you want a campaign that is prepared to stand up to the greed of Wall Street and corporate America and fight for the middle class, help us out. And what happened is that over the last year, this is really unbelievable. It is unprecedented. We have received over 7.3 million individual campaign contributions. Unbelievable. Anybody here know what the average contribution is? I love that. I love that. And what that means, and I want all of you to appreciate what it means that we are showing the world that you can run a strong and winning campaign without being dependent on the big money interests who are destroying this country. To quote Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, to paraphrase him, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, that is the way that we are running our campaign. Secretary Clinton has chosen another path. She has a number of super PACs and a rather complicated fundraising mechanism. And she has raised, in the last reporting period for her major super PAC, $25 million from special interest, including $15 million from Wall Street alone. As many of you know, she has also given a number of speeches behind closed doors to Wall Street at $225,000 a clip. Not a bad day's work. And I think that if you give a speech for $225,000, it must be a brilliant speech. It must be a speech that is so valuable the rest of the world should be able to enjoy it. So I think she should release the transcripts. Now, there is another area where Secretary Clinton and I have a very different point of view, and that is on trade policy. Now, I know that trade policy is not a sexy issue, but it is a very important issue and has impacted the lives of millions of workers in this country. What I realized from the first day that I got into Congress back in the early 1990s is that these trade agreements were written by corporate America, and I'm talking about NAFTA and CAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China. They were written with the sole purpose of being able to allow corporations to shut down in Vermont and Indiana and move their jobs to Mexico and China and other low-wage countries. And what has happened in this country since 2001 is that almost 60,000 factories have been shut down. And millions of decent-paying jobs have been lost. Now, right here in Indiana, you're dealing with a real crisis right now. You got this carrier corporation owned by United Technologies. You're right. And what this corporation is doing is taking 2,100 workers earning a decent pay and 2,100 families and saying, sorry, thank you for your decades of work, you're out of here next year. And we are going to be moving your jobs to Monterrey, Mexico, where we're going to be paying people $3 an hour. Now, this is a corporation whose greed exemplifies exactly what is happening all across this country. A couple of years ago, they let go, United Technologies, that now owns Carrier, let go of their CEO. And while they let him go, they said, hey, you didn't do a particularly good job, but we're going to give you a $171 million severance package. $171 million severance package. They're paying the person who's CEO now something like $14 million a year. They're making billions of dollars a year in profit. They get $6 billion a year from the Defense Department for contracts. And I say to United Technologies that what you're doing is wrong, it is immoral, and you better change that policy. If a company like United Technologies wants to receive defense contracts paid for by the taxpayers of this country, they better start treating their workers with respect. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was invited to a conference at the Vatican. And what that conference was about is what Pope Francis has been talking about for years, and that is how we create a moral economy. How do we create an economy that works for everybody, not just the few? How do we create an economy where a CEO does not get a severance package of $171 million while thousands of workers are thrown out on the streets? How do we create an economy in which we do not have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth? Now, in terms of trade policies, as I said, I have opposed every one of these disastrous trade policies. Secretary Clinton has supported virtually every one of them. So when I hear her talking about her concerns for manufacturing in America, well, if you're concerned about manufacturing, don't support trade policies that have cost us millions of jobs. Everybody here knows that foreign policy is a very important part of what every president does. The most important foreign policy debate in the modern history of this country was over the war in Iraq. I heard and listened carefully to what Bush and Cheney and all the rest had to say in 2002. I voted against the war in Iraq. Secretary Clinton, then a U.S. Senator from New York, heard the same evidence. She voted for the war in Iraq. Right now, there are millions of our people working for $8, $9, $10 an hour all over this country. You can't make it on $8, $9, $10 an hour. Secretary Clinton wants to raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour. That's a start. Doesn't go far enough. We need a $15 an hour minimum wage. There are millions of senior citizens in Indiana, in Vermont. They're trying to survive throughout our country. They're trying to survive on $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. You do the arithmetic. Seniors and disabled vets cannot make it on $11,000, $12,000 a year. And then you got many of my Republican colleagues in the Senate. That's right. And they hear that and they say, oh, okay, what we have to do is cut Social Security benefits. Last year, seniors got a 0 increase in their cost of living. Is that right? 0 interest, 0 increase. Now, how in God's name do you cut something below a 0 increase? I am running for President of the United States. But you knew that already. I know that. I'm running for president because we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, but most people in this country don't know that. And you know why they don't know that? Because they're working 2 or 3 jobs. They're busy worrying about the future of their children. They're working 50 or 60 hours a week, and they are seeing almost all new income and wealth going to the top 1%. And together, we're going to stop that. Together, we are going to... Together, we are going to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Today, that we are going to create an economy which is based on morality, not on greed. Here are the facts, and you can digest them and do with them as you want, but this is the truth. Here in the United States of America today, the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Here in America today, the wealthiest 20 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million people. Here in America, one family, the Walton family, owns Walmart. One family is worth $149 billion. More wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people, one family. And here's what a rigged economy is about. You got a family worth $149 billion, but they are paying their workers at Walmart wages that are so low that many of these employees are forced to go on food stamps and Medicaid. And you know who's paying for that those food stamps and Medicaid? You are. In fact, taxpayers are contributing about $3 billion a year for Walmart employees. You know, you hear a lot of Republicans talking about welfare fraud. They're concerned about people ripping off the welfare system. The major welfare recipient in this country is the wealthiest family in this country, the Walton family. They should not get $3 billion a year of taxpayer funds because they pay their workers wages that are just so low. So I say to the Walton family, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. But it is not just a grotesque level of wealth inequality, it is income inequality as well. What this campaign is about is asking the American people to think outside of the box, to ask questions that you don't see asked very often in the media. Question: how does it happen that despite the huge increase in technology, that we have seen in the last 40 years, why is it that 40, 50 years ago, one breadwinner in a family could earn enough money to take care of the whole family, while today you need mom and dad and the kids out working crazy hours? Why does that happen? Well, that's good. Greed is the answer. Why is it that today our people work the longest hours of any people in the industrialized world? Japanese are very hard workers. We work longer hours than do the Japanese. And yet after mom's working, dad's working, the kids are working, guess what? 58% of all new income generated today goes to the top 1%. Here in Indiana, and this is typical for America, just here in Indiana, since 2007, real median income has gone down by more than $4,700. You know why people are angry? That's why they are angry. Here in Indiana, over 330,000 children are living in poverty, 21% of all kids in the state. Here in Indiana, and again, this is not just Indiana, same story all over America, some 16,000 public school students were homeless during the 2012 school year. Brothers and sisters, we can do a lot better than that. So what do we have to do? It's not hard. This is what we've got to do. First of all, we say very clearly, in America, you work 40 hours a week, you're not going to live in poverty. We're going to raise the minimum wage $15 an hour. Number two, the women of this country are tired of working for 79 cents. They want the whole damn dollar, and they're right. So for women. I was in Flint, Michigan a few months ago, and I saw something that I did not believe to be possible here in the United States of America. Children being poisoned by lead in the water and a collapsing water system. Now this is true not just in Flint, all over this country. We have hundreds of communities with inadequate water systems, inadequate wastewater plants. Our roads, our bridges are in disrepair. Our levees, our dams, our airports, and our rail system need an enormous amount of work. We can create 13 million good-paying jobs rebuilding the crumbling infrastructure in the United States. Imagine an America where our young people are building affordable housing in inner cities throughout this country. Imagine an America where your car doesn't disappear into some huge pothole. Imagine an America where we once again have the best rail system in the world. And when we talk about creating an economy that works for working people, we also have to address the international embarrassment of being the only major country on earth not to provide paid family and medical leave. Today, we don't talk about this very much, but it's the truth. Today in Indiana, today in Vermont, today in every state in this country, women are giving birth. And if that woman is low income, is working class, there is a strong likelihood that she will be forced to separate herself from her baby in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, and go back to work in order to bring in the income. That is not what this country should be about. Moms and dads should have the right to stay home with their newborn babies. And that is why, if elected president, we will have 3 months paid family and medical leave. Campaign, again, is thinking outside of the status quo, not just accepting the options that the establishment gives to you. Everybody here knows that in a highly competitive global economy, we need the best educated workforce in the world. Everybody knows that as a nation, we should be encouraging our people to get all of the education that they can. But today, young people are asking me all over America, they're saying, you know, Bernie, we did what our parents said, we did what our teachers said, we went out, we got a great education. Why are we $30,000, $50,000, $70,000 in debt? And there is no answer I can give other than to say, that's nuts. And then you got hundreds of thousands of bright young people today who can't go to college because their families lack the funds. You know, 50 years ago in Vermont and Indiana, if you had a high school degree, you were doing pretty well. You could go out, everything being equal, and get a pretty good job, make it into the middle class. The world has changed. The economy has changed. Technology has changed. People today need more education. For a long time in our nation's history, the idea of public education being first grade through 12th grade was a noble idea. It was a great idea. But the world has changed. And when we talk about public education today, we have got to be talking about making public colleges and universities tuition free. Anybody here think that that is a particularly radical idea? It is not. It exists in Germany, it exists in Scandinavia. Funny story. I was at a meeting in DC about a year ago, and I was talking to a group of people, and I said, well, you know, in Scandinavia, college is free. And some guy jumps up and says, no, Senator, you're wrong. It's not from Finland, it's not free. They actually pay us to go to college. Okay, so I was wrong. But what those countries understand is that for the long-term benefit of their nations, investing in their young people and their education is the smart thing to do. I want every kid in Indiana. I come from a family, didn't have much money. My parents didn't go to college. And I want kids in Indiana and Fort Wayne and all over this state and all over this country. You got kids in the 4th grade, their parents never went to college. The idea of them going to college is about as realistic in their own minds as them going to the moon. It is not within their purview. They don't consider it. And those are the kids who drop out of school. I want every kid in Indiana, every child in America to understand that if he or she takes their schoolwork seriously, does well, that kid will be able to get a college education regardless of the income level. And I want all people, we got millions of people in this country, and I've talked to many of them, struggling, being crushed by student debt. Never forget, I talked to a guy in Iowa, he was paying over 50% of his limited income every month, paying off his student loans. Talked to a guy in Nevada, he's been paying his student debt for 25 years, more in debt today than he was when he took out the loans. And that is why we are going to give people with student debt the option of refinancing their loans at the lowest interest rates. I'm running for president because we have a global crisis in terms of climate change. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment, and here is the simple truth. The truth is that climate change is real. It is caused by human activity, and it is already causing devastating problems in our country and around the world. And what the scientists tell us is if we do not get our act together in the very near future, the problems that we face today will get much worse in terms of more drought, floods, extreme weather, disturbances, rising sea levels, acidification of the oceans, and international conflict as people fight over limited natural resources. We have a moral obligation to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for our kids and our grandchildren. together, yes, we are going to take on the fossil fuel industry and tell them that their greed and their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. This campaign is listening to the Latino community. And they are telling me there are 11 million undocumented people in this country. Many of them today, as we speak, are being exploited on the job because if you have no legal protection, your employer can do anything he wants to you. We need comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And they are asking, and by the way, throughout this campaign, I've been to Flint, I've been to Chicago, I've been to Detroit, I've been to Philadelphia, I've been to Baltimore. People do not know what is going on in inner cities in this country. They do not know about the fact that 40–50% of the kids in inner cities are unemployed, that 35% of the children are living in poverty, that schools and housing are crumbling, that many communities don't even have a grocery store or a real bank branch. And what the African American community is asking me is, how do we have trillions of dollars to invest in a war we never should have gotten into? But somehow we don't have enough money to rebuild the inner cities of this country. Together we are going to change our national priorities. We're not going to spend money on wars we never should have gotten into. We're not going to give tax breaks to billionaires. We are going to create millions of jobs, rebuilding our inner cities, creating the affordable housing that our people desperately need. This campaign is listening to a people whose pain gets almost no hearing, and that is our brothers and sisters in the Native American communities. All of you know that the first Americans were lied to, they were cheated, treaties they negotiated were broken way back even before we were a country. And all of you know that we owe the Native American people a debt that we can never repay. They have taught us so much, including the fact that as human beings, we are part of nature. We must live with nature, not destroy nature. And what they have told us, and they are absolutely right, is if we continue destroying nature, we are essentially destroying the human species. This campaign is asking the American people to think big, not small. It is asking the American people to stand up and fight for economic, social, racial, and environmental justice. There is one country in the industrialized world that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right you are living in that country. Today, 29 million people have no health insurance. Many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and co-payments. And all of us are getting ripped off by the greed of the drug companies who charge us the highest prices. And yet, on top of all of that, we end up spending far, far more per capita than do the people of any other country on earth. 3 times what the British spend, 50% more than the French. In my view, and let me be as clear as I can be, I believe that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. And I believe the U.S. should join the rest of the industrialized world, pass a Medicare for all health care program. And when we do that, we save middle-class families thousands of dollars a year on their health insurance. But you know what we also do? We take the incredible load off people's shoulders who worry about being able to afford to go to the doctor, worry about what happens to them when they leave the hospital with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. What it also does is revolutionary. This is what it says to you. It says that you don't have to stay on a job you don't like just because you get good health insurance. It says that you will have the freedom to start your own business, to do what you want with your life. And just that, can you imagine what that does to America when millions of people say, thank God, I can finally go out and do what I've always wanted to do. And I and my family will continue to have health insurance because everybody in America will have health insurance as a right. Everybody here knows that the most important lesson that we can learn from American history is that real change never takes place from the top on down. It always occurs from the bottom on up. Real change always takes place when millions of people look around them and say, you know what? The status quo is wrong. It's inhumane. It's unfair. And we are going to change that. And throughout history, in struggle after struggle, the establishment, the powerful, the big money interest always said, you can't do it. It's too hard. It's impossible. You shouldn't do it. You think back. 100+ years ago in this country, you had workers working 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. You had children working in factories. Workers could be fired arbitrarily. They had no rights. And what did they do? They stood up. They fought back. They formed trade unions to negotiate contracts with their employees. And the trade union movement helped create the middle class of this country. Think back hundreds of years ago, amidst the abomination of slavery, where you had many people, African Americans and their allies, saying, the day will come when America will wipe out racism and bigotry and discrimination. And millions of people stood up, fought back. We do not know the names of those people who died in that struggle, who were lynched, who went to jail, who were beaten, who lost their jobs. fighting for racial equality in this country. Think about 100 years ago, when women in America, 100 years ago, no time at all, women in America did not have the right to vote, to get an education, to do the work they wanted to do. 100 years ago, the establishment decided that women's role was to stay home and have babies. That was her function. But women said, excuse us, that's not our view of our lives. And they stood up and they fought back and they went on hunger strikes. They went to jail. Some of them died in the struggle in order to make certain that in this country, women would not be second-class citizens. Years ago, no time at all, we were sitting here, or we're standing here, somebody jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, I think that by the year 2015, gay marriage will be legal in 50 states in this country. If somebody said that, the person next to her would have said, you're crazy. You're nuts. There's too much hatred out there. There's too much bigotry. It's just not going to happen that soon. And yet the gay community and their straight allies stood up, fought back, and said that in America, people should have the right to love whoever they wanted, regardless of their against all of that bigotry which exists today, as we all know, continues to exist. Despite all of that hostility, gay community has made enormous progress. Think about a discussion we could have had 5 years ago right here. Somebody jumps up and says, Bernie, this $7.25 an hour minimum wage is a starvation wage. We've got to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. The person next to him would have said, $15 an hour? You're out of your mind. You're thinking too radically. You're thinking too big. Maybe $8, maybe $10. I'll give you maybe 11. You can't do 15. But what happened? What happened was that workers in the fast food industry, in McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, they went out on strike. And they told the American people, we can't make it on $7.25 an hour. I'll never forget being in Detroit, Michigan, a year and a half ago, talking to people, not kids, working people, making $7.25 an hour. They couldn't even get 40 hours a week. 20 hours in this place, got on a bus, went to the next place, 20 hours, $7.25, went to another place. And those people stood up and they fought back. And then you know what happened? In Seattle, Washington, $15 an hour. In San Francisco and Los Angeles, $15 an hour. In Oregon, California, New York State, $15 an hour. If I have anything to say about it, it will be $15 an hour in 50 states in this country. Right. What is my point by taking you through the short course of American history? Here's my point. Throughout history and today, what the establishment is saying, you are thinking too big. You can't accomplish what you think you can accomplish. Think small, not big. Who do you think you are that you should be able to work 40 hours a week and earn a living wage? Who do you think you are in thinking that the United States of America should be able to join every other major country and guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child as a right? Who do you think you are that when working class women have babies, they have a right to stay home with their babies? Who do you think you are in saying that our seniors should be able to retire in security and dignity? Who do you think you are in saying that we should not have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth? That we should not have more income and wealth inequality? Who do you think you are in saying that we should lead the world in transforming our energy system and rebuilding our infrastructure? In other words, what the establishment and the establishment media and Congress and politicians do in a million ways, some of them very subtle, is to say, limit your expectations. Don't have dreams. Don't believe that this country can do. That's right. And we say, sorry, this is America. This is the greatest country in the history of the world. And we are not going to be intimidated by the billionaire class or corporate America or Wall Street. We are going to create the nation that we know we can be. And what this campaign is about is telling you what no other candidate for president will tell you. And that is that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can make the changes we need by himself. Can't do it alone. What we need in this country now, more than anything, is millions of people from coast to coast standing up, fighting back. And demanding a government that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Tomorrow is primary day here in Indiana. And the people of this great state can play a major role. A huge role, now that I think about it, in making that transformation possible. Now, what we have learned in this campaign is that when voter turnout is high, we win. When voter turnout is low, we lose. Tomorrow, let us have the highest voter turnout in Indiana history. And let Indiana be the 18th state to demand